The Armenian Genocide by Jaylynn Bamba. Before the genocide, the Kingdom of Armenia was full of Armenian people and was an independent kingdom. The official religion is Christianity in the beginning of the 4th century AD, as they were the first nation in the world to have Christianity as its official religion. During the 15th century, Armenia was engulfed into the Ottoman Empire. Within the Ottoman Empire, there were minority groups that included Armenians, Greeks, and Assyrians, as they were all Christian communities. The Ottoman Empire was full of religions like Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Most of the subjects and Ottoman rulers were Muslim. Christians like the Armenians were taxed higher than Muslims and had little political rights. The dominant ethnic group in the Ottoman Empire were the Turks. During the second half of the 19th century, Turkish nationalism started to erupt. Their nationalist movements grew and increased, leaving influence of literature and articles emphasizing on the supremacy of Turkish civilization. The Turkish nationalism affected the Armenian community, as they soon became the largest group of Christians within the Ottoman Empire. Due to the intolerable Turkish nationalism situation, the first Armenian political parties addressed their vulnerability of their cultural life within the empire, political and economic issues due to the discrimination towards the minority group of Armenians. This awareness and their economic overachievement in Sultan's domain would add to the discomfort and distrust between the Armenians and Turks. Turkish Sultan Abdülhamid was against the Armenian campaign and infuriated by the result of the Armenians to win basic civil rights during the end of the 19th century. Between 1894 and 1896 was the first organized ethnic massacre, or pogrom, that grew tensions against Armenians and other Christian groups. It was caused by the response of Turkish military officers and ordinary men due to the large-scale protests. They sacked Armenian villages and hundreds of thousands of Armenians were murdered. The Young Turks. In July 1908, a group called the Young Turks, who were reformers, overthrew Sultan Abdülhamid and seized power in the Ottoman capital. They were mostly a group of Balkan-born military officers and bureaucrats. In 1906, they took over a secretary society called the Committee of Union and Progress, or CUP. This was reformed into a political movement. They established a modern government. Hopeful, the Armenians thought they could live equally. But the Young Turks wanted to dominate the empire completely, making the empire only full of Turks. Non-Turks and Christian non-Turks were a threat to the new state. Enver Pasha and Talat Pasha increased the nationalism when they were in power. World War I begins. In World War I, the Turks entered for Germany and the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. As the war became more intense, Armenians went into the war to help the Russian army fight against the Turks in the Caucasus region. They joined the war by organizing volunteer battalions. The Turkish government pushed to abolish Armenians from the war zones along the Eastern Front. Start of the Armenian Genocide. The Armenian Genocide began on April 24, 1915. The day it started, 250 Armenian intellectuals were arrested and executed by Turkish authorities. The arrest and execution were due to the Turks' fear of the Armenians being sided with Russia, which was the Ottoman Empire's rival. The chaos from World War I was covered for the Committee of Union and Progress. The CUP, or the Young Turks, their plan for a genocide against the Armenian citizens. After the first day, Armenian citizens were forced out of their homes and sent to Mesopotamian deserts without food or water for death marches. These marchers were stripped naked and forced to walk under the sun until they dropped dead. People were shot if they stopped to rest. Armenians were sent to concentration camps located near modern Turkey's southern border, created by the Ottoman Empire, if they survived the marches. Life in the camps was short due to the restricted food and water and diseases. There were horrifying methods to exterminate Armenians by the Turkish government, some of which 25 years later, Armenians would be adopted and refined by the Nazis. They experienced starvation if they were not killed by the military. There was a killing squad created by the Young Turks that were a group of murderers and ex-convicts. The Armenians were drowned in rivers, thrown off cliffs, crucified, and burned alive by the killing squads. Children were kidnapped and converted them to Islam. They were given to Turkish families. Women were raped and forced to serve as slaves. At the time of the massacre within the Ottoman Empire, there were about 2 million Armenians. When the genocide ended in 1922, within the Ottoman Empire, there were only 388,000 Armenians remaining. Reaction to the Armenian Genocide. The genocide was known as European, and the United States had consular missions throughout the Ottoman Empire. They wanted to provide the accurate and detailed events during the Armenian Genocide. Several Western witnesses to the chaos published their own accounts. This included Henry Morgenthau, who was the former U.S. ambassador to the Ottoman Empire. Thousands of Armenian people were adopted by Westerners due to the United States providing relief and care groups for the Armenians. These groups raised over $100 million for the aid for over 2 million Armenian refugees. Between 1919 and 1920, an arrangement of Turkish court cases issued blameworthy decisions to the three pashas, three senior authorities and orchestrators of the genocide. All three cleared out the nation, therefore, the convicts were insignificant. 150 Turkish men involved in the genocide were arrested by Allied authorities. They were sent to Malta for trial. They eventually returned to Turkey without trial, leading to no punishment for people who were involved with the Armenian genocide. The aftermath and legacy. In 1918, the Ottomans surrendered, and the leaders of the Young Turks fled to Germany, promising not to prosecute them due to the genocide. Although Armenian nationalists created Operation Nemesis, which was a plan to track down and assassinate the leaders of the genocide. Estimated 1.5 million Armenians died in the genocide, and around 250,000 Assyrians were killed by the Turkish government. The Turkish government denies that there was a genocide. They believe and argue the Armenians were in an enemy force and their deaths were crucial for war measure. The two countries that deny the genocide and Ottoman governments for the elimination of the Armenian community is Turkey and Azerbaijan. In Turkey, it is illegal to talk about the Armenian genocide. In March 2010, there was a U.S. congressional panel that was voted to recognize the Armenian genocide. On October 29, 2019, there was a resolution recognizing the Armenian genocide passed by the U.S. House of Representatives. On April 24, 2021, President Biden said, "The Armenian people honor all those Armenians who perished in a genocide that began 106 years ago today." It took several decades for the genocide and the Armenian community to be recognized, but today, more than 20 countries officially acknowledge the genocide. Connections. Due to the alliance between Ottoman and Germany, German military, diplomats, and relief workers have witnessed the atrocities during the Armenian genocide. Some reactions were in horror, against it, or supported the Ottomans. This generation of Germans would keep the memory of the Armenian genocide into the 1930s and 1940s. The memory is shown through their actions against Jews under the Nazis. Historians have proof from research that the atrocities towards the Armenians are considered a genocide. This research further angers Turkey as they have given death threats and made enemies toward researchers and journalists who have claimed the genocide. Countries such as the UK and the US have difficulty officially recognizing the Armenian genocide. The UK tried to support and recognize the genocide by giving signatures in 2006, but this does not confirm the UK fully recognizing the Armenians. Their silence emphasizes on their fear on admitting the truth. This is due to the backlash they would receive from the Turkish government. Many countries avoid the word genocide due to the fear of creating tensions between them and Turkey. It is proven by evidence that if a country recognizes the Armenian genocide, it will impact their relations negatively with Turkey. The evidence highlights the risk of foreign countries have when recognizing the Armenian genocide, further emphasizing the intimidation and fear among countries. Countries such as the UK and the US have larger risks when recognizing the Armenian genocide. This is because their military forces are both supplied from Turkey. If they recognize the genocide, this will lead to harsh consequences. The British Foreign Office has claimed that, given the importance of our relationships, political, strategic, and commercial, with Turkey, and that recognizing the genocide would provide no practical benefit to the UK. This pressures the US to essentially ignore the Armenian genocide. Voting has happened, but nothing has changed. This also angered the president of Turkey, Erdogan, who is still the president today. These two situations reveal how even the powerful countries such as the UK and the US are motivated to maintain their positive relations with Turkey. After all of the atrocities that happened during the Armenian genocide, they are finally being recognized today. And that is the history of the Armenian genocide.